around the country. I'm going to go a little bit more rapid fire here just because there's a few, and we obviously want to get into predict commit, and I'm hearing a roaring thunder coming out of my back window, and I'm already on a hot spot as we do this, so I don't even know how much longer anybody's going to be able to hear me. A couple of guys that committed to FSU that took official visits to Georgia: wide receiver Brandon Bennett, defensive lineman Tico Crittenden, who I'm now realizing was on your predict to commit team. That is one, Jordan. You know, we've talked in the past about how you're not out on any of these guys just because they commit, because they could flip. That's one where I'm going to say I wouldn't rule it out. We've talked about defensive line. We got to see how it all plays out. If Georgia misses on Valdensona, if they miss on James Johnson, Kendall Guerville, all these guys that we've been talking about, take Tico Crittenden still in consideration for Georgia, but a couple of guys that the Seminoles got into their class. I mentioned earlier, it's hard to flip guys from Notre Dame. Just before we got on here, Thomas Davis, Jr., linebacker legacy at the University of Georgia, had taken an official visit. I had mentioned a couple episodes ago, you know, I didn't think Georgia was going to flip him, but then coming out of the OV, it was like, if it happens in the next couple of weeks, maybe. He gets back to that Notre Dame official visit. They lock him down. He has officially shut down his recruitment. I think that's probably the safest bet of where that thing had been trending the whole time, just in terms of how late Georgia was. But it does complicate things a little bit in terms of what shakes out with Georgia at linebacker. And I'll bring up something else as it relates to that coming up. Dre Quinn, edge rusher from formerly Greater Atlanta Christian, recently transferred to Buford High School. He's down to two schools, Texas and Clemson. Hasn't made a commitment decision yet. I would have fully expected him to end up at Clemson, but there's some buzz coming out of Texas. I'm not going to be as tapped in on that recruitment, admittedly, now that Georgia is no longer really involved, but I can say it's not going to be Georgia, and we know Georgia's really all in on Kamari Brooks, who will be making his decision on June 23rd. Maybe should have found a way to work that into arrow pointing up, commitment dates, something like that. I don't know, but Kamari Brooks coming up. Couple players in the state of Georgia that didn't take official visits to Georgia, but I could see a world where if things go sideways at certain positions, we could maybe see them circle back on them. Running back Jerrion Campbell commits to Indiana. Offensive tackle Tyler Chuckium commits to Florida, and running back Carson Baker commits to Florida. Three guys that Georgia was not at a place yet that they were going to bring them on official visits, but like we've said, we don't 100% know what running back 2 is going to look like. We don't 100% know if Georgia misses on Malachi Lee and Fletcher Turk is already committed to Clemson or Georgia Tech or Auburn. We don't necessarily know who they might circle back on. Carson Baker, Tyler Chuckium, Jerrion Campbell, just a couple of names to keep an eye on at those positions. And then not commitment news, not narrowing down your recruitment news, not shutting down your recruitment news. But one of the more interesting things I saw this week, 5-star linebacker Tyler Atkinson is taking an official visit to Texas this weekend, not Ohio State. Does he still find the time to get to Ohio State? That I don't know. We've talked about how he's uniquely releasing his official visit schedule a little bit differently. Notable that it is not Ohio State, but because it's Texas, going to scare the dickens out of people until he actually commits to Georgia. I mentioned earlier, we've got people on our board that are constantly tagging me up in arms about certain things. Just the fact that Tyler Atkinson is taking a visit to Texas has people in full meltdown mode, which I get it. Justice Terry PTSD syndrome is going on, but guys, let's please just let this thing play out a little bit. All right. We knew he was going to take 4 official visits, all 4 of the main weekends of June. That is not a newsflash. It's maybe a little bit surprising that it was Texas. I think it probably alarms people a little bit that he's been doing some summer workout stuff in Texas. Maybe I'm being naive in saying that that was always part of the plan and they wanted to get him out of the state so that he could get what I wrote about this on the board, but his dad talked to me about this last fall, that they were this summer going to get him out of Georgia just because when you get to the NFL, you're going to be somewhere totally different, somewhere completely uncomfortable. A lot of guys go train in LA or Miami or Dallas, just different places. And it's a different life experience that Tyler's never really had. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe they wanted to get that out of state experience because he's going to be going to college out of state. I don't see it that way. I think that it's a situation where they just wanted to use this offseason to almost professionalize what an offseason would look like for Tyler. And it just so happens that because he's been in Texas, it's made him a little bit more accessible to Texas. Again, maybe naivety on my part, but I'm still feeling like Georgia is the team to beat despite any, fears that people are having right now. Maybe I'll feel differently about that next week, but as of right now, I still like where Georgia is.
Ben, we thought that was thunder outside. It's not thunder. It's a stampede of Longhorns. They're coming into Georgia and they're taking all the players, man. I'm with you. And I mean, honestly, I can understand the Justice Terry piece of this. But, I mean, I would kind of more look at it on a positive side if I'm a Georgia fan and saying we kind of thought Ohio State was the top competition and they're not even getting an official visit. So, I mean, maybe, again, that's me spinning it, but I don't know that it's necessarily terrible news.
People are always going to be concerned with recruitments like these. And the thing that annoys me, and you know this, because we live in a different financial world of how this is done, everyone acts like when these things are happening, it's just like the end of the world, full meltdown mode. Guys that Georgia really wanted used to take official visits to Texas and end up at Texas too. It's not the first time in the world that this type of stuff has happened. Save the meltdown until he actually commits to Texas. Why don't we? Like, if he was going to Ohio State this weekend, all the same people would have been saying, I'm worried about Ohio State. I don't feel good about what Ohio State might be doing here. Like, look, he was going to take 4 official visits. Georgia was always going to be one of them. I personally think the fact that he was on an official visit weekend the same weekend that Jared Curtis was coming on an official visit weekend is a good thing, because Georgia was strategically trying to make that June 13th to 15th weekend one of camaraderie for guys that I think they were feeling pretty good about. But we'll see. Maybe we'll have a different conversation about this next week, but that's also a recruitment where we might be waiting until late July, August before we know for certain.